He bragged about being bought out, until he realized who was buying him. I didn't correct him when he said my job was slides and buzzwords. It was easier to let Marcus believe that. The conference room at HarborWorks Co-work in South Lake Union had concrete floors and a view of Lake Union that made even bad coffee taste expensive. I took the end seat by the whiteboard, laptop open, calendar grid clean and obedient. 6 months earlier I had walked out of Sterling Technologies with a single banker box and the kind of quiet you only earn. People assumed I'd go lick my wounds. I didn't. I went to work. "Emma, you still doing consulting?" my cousin Lauren asked, dropping into the chair across from me with a grin that had too much sugar in it. "Still," I said. She nodded toward the glass wall. Outside, a half-dozen 20-somethings in hoodies skated past with scooters, the uniform of funded optimism. Marcus just closed a seat extension for Vector Loop Robotics. He says it's real tech. Not like, she twirled her fingers over my screen. PowerPoint. Good for him, I said. She lowered her voice like we were conspiring. "We're having a family thing Saturday. He wants to pick your brain on enterprise sales. Be nice, okay? He's fragile about Sterling." She made the face people make when they say a word they don't like. I'm always nice. Saturday arrived with a grin that wouldn't close. My father grilled salmon on cedar and kept pouring sparkling water like it could dissolve guilt. My stepmother Claire rearranged cutlery and sentences. Marcus held court at the picnic table. "Consulting," he said to me, spearing asparagus. "That's where you tell other people how to do jobs you can't do yourself, right?" Aunt Renee laughed too quickly. "Marcus." "I'm kidding," he said, "not kidding. Seriously, though. I'm glad you found something low stakes. Vector Loop's got a real shot this time. Supply chain robotics. We're automating depalletization with vision systems. Not slides, machines." "Sounds promising," I said. "It is," he said. "We've got a letter of intent from Cascadia Dynamics. You've probably never heard of them, industrial integrator, deep relationships. They want to acquire us in 2 quarters if we hit milestones. It's like," he made an exploding gesture. "This is how you build a legacy." Dad squeezed his shoulder. "Proud of you, son." Claire brushed invisible crumbs from the table. "Emma, dear, you should talk to Marcus about your decks. Maybe he can introduce you to a few startups who need polishing." "Sure," I said. "If it's useful." Marcus smiled. "We'll put you on something small. Maybe GTM slides for a junior team. Practice." I finished my salmon and watched the evening fold itself into the lake. Northbridge strategy started with 3 assumptions. Founders don't need prettier slides, they need accurate maps. Accuracy is quiet. Competence is invisible until it isn't. Value accrues to whoever holds the last signature. I built the firm in the negative space people left me. A sublease above a bakery. 1 analyst, then 2. We specialized in what everyone says they do and almost no one actually does. Strategic diligence that holds up when lawyers read it. We told clients what would break and how to make it not break. Sometimes that meant telling them to walk away. I was careful with the corporate structure. Northbridge Strategy, LLC, a Washington company. Underneath it, a Delaware series of holding vehicles, Harbor Peak Holdings, LP, Elliott Avenue Management, LLC, a scattering of special-purpose subsidiaries for client equity and co-investment, quiet, clean, boring to anyone who wasn't paid to love it. I bought small pieces of the companies we fixed. Sometimes those pieces became large. I kept my last name off most things. People made fewer speeches when they didn't realize you were a Sterling. The Cascadia Dynamics rumor came true in the way rumors that have counsel attached do, slowly, professionally, with dates. Vector Loop hit its milestones, mostly by selling pilot projects to customers who liked Marcus's confidence and their own press releases. Cascadia sent a formal indication of interest in March. The purchase price would be $147 million, half cash, half stock, subject to working capital adjustments, an earnout, and the usual grindstones, reps and warranties, escrow, indemnity, 280G, the alphabet that turns confetti into contracts. Emma, Dad said over the phone, voice light like he'd practiced. Marcus is closing on Friday. We're having a celebration at the Westin. Will you come? Of course. Good. And Emma? Yes. I know we didn't see you clearly. I'm trying. I know, I said. The ballroom smelled like polished wood and old speeches. Vector loop banners leaned against walls like tall children. Reporters hovered near a step and repeat that had been printed too blue. Marcus wore a navy suit that fit like he'd finally learned the cost of tailors. His smile had edges. Emma. He hugged me as if we'd been built from the same blueprint. Big day. Congratulations, I said. He tilted his head toward the raised dais. Signing's at 2. Our counsel's here, Wilson Sonsini. Cascadia's bringing in their GC and a partner from Latham. Whole thing's going to be buttoned up by 3, then press at 4. You'll want to sit up front, history and all that. Claire appeared with a flute of champagne I didn't remember asking for. Emma, your dress is lovely. Understated. You've always had restraint. It's a skill, I said. She smiled like she'd found me useful. At 1:58 p.m., the two sides filed into a smaller conference room flanking the ballroom, glass doors, too much light, a polished table with power ports that had been engineered to make you feel like your decisions were charging something. I took a chair against the wall with other non-parties, which is how you describe people who will nonetheless remember everything. Wilson's deal lead, Kara Sloan, neat hair, neater binder, opened with timing. We'll walk the signature packets section by section. Stock purchase agreement first, then ancillary documents, disclosure schedules, employment agreements, 280G approvals, escrow, IP assignment, transition services. Then we'll collect counter-signatures. She glanced at Cascadia's team. We have HSR clearance already on file. No suspensory conditions remain. Cascadia's GC, a man with reading glasses that made him look like a decision, nodded. Agreed. Marcus sat beside Dad. He looked like he'd slept and then decided to perform it. He kept touching the watch he couldn't afford 6 months ago. Kara distributed signature sets in Redwell folders. I watched the packets make their rounds, watched the blue tab forests inside that told hands where to land pens. The room had the careful silence of a thing about to be permanent. Page 3 of the stock purchase agreement held the parties. Vector Loop Robotics Incorporated, a Delaware corporation, company. Cascadia Dynamics Holdco Incorporated, a Delaware corporation, buyer. An annex listed buyer's parent entity. I watched one of Vector Loop's angels, gray blazer, angel investor posture, scan the line and frown. Investors always read the annex. That's where ownership hides. Claire leaned toward Dad and whispered too loudly, should we ask what a holdco means? Dad squeezed her knee. Kara kept moving. Section 3, Representations and Warranties of the Seller. We've narrowed the bring down to MA qualified reps except capitalization and authority reps, which are flat. She looked at Marcus. We're good? He nodded, eager. Good. Cascadia's counsel slid a separate packet across to their GC. He read, smiled slightly, and set it aside. Routine. I waited. Because here is the thing about acquisitions, the real reveal is always in the signature block. Not the preamble or the recitals. Not the press release. Whoever signs as the sole member, a managing member, the general partner, that's the person who actually owns the thing doing the buying. Kara flipped to the signature page. Okay, we're signing for buyer now. She handed the top packet to Cascadia's GC. He signed Cascadia Dynamics Holdco Incorporated with a practiced hand, then turned to the page beneath it, by Harbor Peak Holdings, LLC, sole member. He paused. He glanced up. The room did not understand the specific gravity shift because gravity doesn't announce itself. It just moves. Kara's pen tapped lightly. Everything okay, John? The GC blinked once. Yes. He signed, then flipped the page to the next block. By Elliott Avenue Management, LLC, managing member of Harbor Peak Holdings, LLC. He signed again and exhaled through his nose the way lawyers do when everything that needed to be true was indeed true. Marcus was already talking to a photographer at the door, smile craning toward future articles. Can we get a shot of the signing, like the handshake? The classic one? Kara stapled, stacked, moved. Now seller. Pen skated. Paper made that careful air noise it makes when it learns who it belongs to. At 2:41 p.m., it was done. Applause broke out in the way applause does when people want to cover the sound of $100 million moving. Dad stood, proud and smaller. Claire dabbed at the corners of her eyes as if success were humid. We migrated back to the ballroom for the press. The stage had 2 stools and a lectern with a foam mic cube bearing Vector Loop's logo. A screen behind it showed Cascadia X Vector Loop in sans serif optimism. Marcus stepped up, swallowed the room, and began. Today is proof, he said, that grit and vision win. Vector Loop has built something real with machines, not promises. Cascadia recognized that. Together we're going to transform how goods move in this country. Flashes. Nods. The choreography of being believed. A hand went up from the second row. A reporter in a gray jacket who did not look like he enjoyed being told stories. Question for buyer, he said. Can we get the name of the acquiring entity's parent for the record? Cascadia's GC smiled, the version reserved for external comms. Cascadia Dynamics Holdco Incorporated, wholly owned by Harbor Peak Holdings, LLC. The reporter typed, then paused. And Harbor Peak Holdings is owned by. The GC looked down at his prepared notes, then chose accuracy. Elliott Avenue Management, LLC is the managing member. The reporter's fingers hovered. And the beneficial owner of Elliott Avenue? He didn't need to ask, not really, he knew what he was doing. They always do. The GC's eyes flicked to me and then away, as if by instinct. Northbridge Strategy Holdings, he said. I believe the managing member is Emma Sterling. The room made a sound I have never heard a room make, something between a cough and a power outage. Marcus laughed because there is a split second when people who don't understand ownership try to make truth smaller than it is. No, he said, into the microphone. He turned toward the GC. No, the GC kept his public smile on. Yes. Marcus's face went sheet white. He looked from the GC to Kara to Dad to me, as if one of us would explain physics differently this time. Emma, he said. What is this? It's an acquisition, I said. You own Cascadia? His voice cracked like glass under a chair leg. Through subsidiaries, I said. Harbor Peak Holdings, Elliott Avenue Management, and others. He laughed the way people laugh when their mouth is trying to buy time for their mind. That's insane. Emma, you're a consultant. I am, I said. And I invest in companies we advise when it's appropriate. We acquired Cascadia Dynamics assets 18 months ago and restructured. It's been performing well. You bought Cascadia. Marcus said it like a sentence needed more oxygen. Why didn't you tell anyone? You never asked. Claire stood up so fast her chair made a complaint. Emma, this is cruel, she said softly, face white but voice steady for the first time in years. You let your brother believe, I let him sell, I said. On terms that protect his team, with cash that clears. That's kindness in this business. Dad stepped closer to the stage, not climbing it, just near enough to remind me of every school play and missed recital. Emma, he said quietly, is this true? Yes. He rubbed his jaw, nodded once like something heavy had been set down and fit. Okay, he said. Kara took the mic like a surgeon removing an instrument someone shouldn't be holding. We'll take process questions now. Specifics of ownership are a matter of public record in Delaware filings and will appear in the 8K equivalent notice. Vector Loop is filing. Today is about combination, teams, and customers. The reporter did not sit. One more, he said. For Ms. Sterling. Yes, I said. Is this revenge? No, I said, calm. It's capitalization. Laughter filtered through the back of the room, then died when people realized the answer would be the same no matter which way they turned it. The press conference ended the way all press conferences do, with press releases that sounded like the room had not happened. The family found me in a service corridor outside the ballroom where Hotel Art tried to make beige feel like a choice. Explain, Marcus said. The word came out like he'd paid too much for it. I started Northbridge Strategy. After Sterling, I said. We do real work. We took a stake in Cascadia Dynamics when they were failing under a different cap table. We rebuilt it. When Vector Loop became an obvious fit, we pursued it the way competent buyers do, quietly and thoroughly. We paid you well. Your team has offers. The integration plan protects engineering focus and customers. And if you hit your earnout, you'll make more. You humiliated me, he said. I gave you liquidity, I said. You confused applause with control. Those are different currencies. Claire's mouth was a line that had lost its page. You planned this, she said. I planned a lot of things, I said. Including contingencies for a CEO who runs hot and forgets to read covenants. Marcus took a step closer. You could have told me. You could have asked, I said. Any of you. Dad's eyes were wet and clear. I don't have the right to ask anything, he said. But I'd like to know, why Cascadia? It was fixable, I said. Old line integrator with relationships, not a story, assets. They had process. They were missing discipline. We brought it. He nodded. We didn't do that for you. No, I said. You did not. He put his hand out hesitantly, not to touch me, just to put it in the space where he could keep it from shaking. I'm sorry, he said. For the way we treated you. For the meetings where I watched you disappear. I considered. Thank you, I said. Marcus leaned back against the wall and let himself slide a fraction, as if gravity was finally billing. So what now, he said. I report to you? You report to Cascadia's COO, I said. Interim for 6 months. If you'd like to stay through the earnout, be a CEO. If you'd like to exit now, take the cash component and leave the stock on the table. There's a seat for builders who want to be managed. There's dignity in both. He laughed, small, bitter, human. You rehearsed that. I did, I said. He stared at me the way people stare at a building they thought was decorative and turns out to be load-bearing. Who are you? Someone who reads signature pages, I said. And the parts before them. The weeks that followed were the administrative version of weather. The 8K notice went live with signatures that made the internet briefly pretend to be curious about Delaware LLC's HSR filings came and went. Employees moved their desktops and then didn't because IT made everything cloud. Engineers kept building. Customers kept calling. 3 things happened that mattered. First, Marcus stayed. People leave when pride pays more than equity. But he stayed through the transition, maybe for the checkboxes, maybe for the chance to prove he could be coached. What we call motive is usually a stack, not a single page. Second, Dad called me on a Tuesday morning at 7:08 a.m. like a man who had written down what time honesty keeps. He didn't ask for anything. He told me he had resigned from the board of what was left of Sterling, that he joined a non-profit focused on vocational training for women in manufacturing, and that he was learning what meetings look like when you're not the sun. It's quieter, he said. I can hear people. Third, a call came from a number I didn't recognize one afternoon when the Seattle sky had finally decided what color it wanted to be. Ms. Sterling, the voice said, bright and practiced. Jennifer Walsh from Forbes. I'm working on a piece about invisible owners, operators who sit behind operating companies. I understand Northbridge strategy played a unique role in the Vector Loop/Cascadia transaction. I looked out at the lake and thought of a younger version of myself counting how many times people used the word girl when they meant secretary. I don't sit behind companies, I said. I sit beside them. And sometimes I buy them when it makes sense. Can I quote you? She asked. You just did. We set a time for the next morning. I hung up and stood very still in the office while the world didn't move the way you think it will. My analyst, Priya, knocked and leaned in, eyebrows an essay. All good, she asked. Yes, I said. She pointed at the whiteboard where we'd mapped 3 target lists and an integration plan that had more color code than art. You want to keep going on Jensen Logistics? The vendor churn looks worse than their deck admits. I smiled. Let's keep going. I saw Marcus twice more that spring in rooms that had fewer chairs. Once in a customer review where he actually listened, to a plant manager explain why pallets arrive at the exact wrong height in half the Midwest. Once in a hallway after a safety briefing where he lifted his hand like he might say something heavy and then said something small instead. Mom would have liked this, he said softly, like grief was a person we both knew. You, making things run. She liked anything that started on time, I said. We both smiled at the same memory we'd edited differently and kept anyway. On a Friday at 5, after the week had published its last demand, he stopped by my office door at Cascadia's building with a face that had learned a new muscle. Emma, he said. I signed the retention. 6 months. Then we'll see. He swallowed. Thank you. For not leveling me. I don't level people, I said. I right-size risk. He nodded. That's worse. It's fairer, I said. He lingered, then shook his head, then left. I watched him walk down the hall without swagger. It suited him. Quiet power is not about volume. It's about sequence. You let people declare their reality. You let them mistake kindness for capacity. You let them brag about being bought out. Then you hand them a pen and a page with your name in the only place that matters. I closed my laptop, turned off the lights in an office that smelled faintly of marker, and stood at the window while Seattle did its slow, blue-hour trick. Someone in a kayak drew a clean line across the lake and made it look easy. Ownership is a line like that. Most people think it's the splash. It's not. It's the direction after. And if anyone asked, I could point to the papers, to the signature blocks, to the words beneath the words. Harbor Peak Holdings, LLC, sole member. Elliott Avenue Management, LLC, managing member. By Emma Sterling.